What's up, everybody? My name is Brandon McCollum, also known as BMXC, and this is Nice Minds. I'm with a very, like I say every time, very special guest today, my homie Dan Bianco. What's good, my dude?
Not much, man. Just got done with work, hanging out. Not much going on.
So how we know each other, we go way back. We go back to like 2005, I want to say, because I started at the Maple Grove Community Center when I was 20 years old. And you were like 11 when I met you, right?
Yeah, so about 2005, 2006, I want to say.
That's crazy. That's nuts. Cause yeah, I started at the Maple Grove Community Center when I was 20, and it was this job that literally, like, I think about that time of my life, and I'm just like, I was doing nothing with my life. Like, I was doing stuff. But like, I was obviously working there, but like, I was working this part-time job at the community center for like 7 years in my 20s. And I was, kind of doing the rap thing and like, doing shows, going to shows, but hibernating and making beats and working this part-time job. And I let that go on like my whole 20s. So it's crazy. But yeah, so I remember you as little Danny Bianco, and we got to know each other right away. And I remember all the staff there was like, "Oh, Danny's so annoying. He's this, he's that." I'm like, "Nah, Danny's the homie. Danny's cool as shit." But yeah, what do you remember about those days?
I remember the year before I ended up going to the teen center and just really wishing I could go. I wasn't old enough yet. And my mom always worked at that Lifetime that was connected to it. So I was always right there. Finally, I got to the age where I could go. I think it was pretty quickly I got introduced to you probably in the first like 2 weeks of going there. You probably worked your shifts. And I remember like very quickly wanting to like help out, do small things. I kind of got close to the manager there, the person that was your boss, and uh got close with all of the people that were there. It was just my place to like, I don't know, be myself, I guess. Use the computer. Those were back in the days where not everybody had a computer on their fingertips or anything. So I could use the computer. Facebook had just came out, MySpace and stuff, so I was using that. Video games were there. I didn't really have a whole lot of consoles and stuff as a kid, and then I just remember as months went on and years went on, where I'd be there more and more, just sitting in the office and talking with the people that were working, talking with you. I probably spent, every day that you worked, I was there. I was there literally every day after school for 4 or 5 years.
Oh
So,
yeah.
um, we probably spent every day you worked like an hour or two just sitting in the office and talking. And man, so I just remember it was good times. Teen Center those were good years. I enjoyed those years very much.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize until recently, and we talked about this a little bit before the podcast started, how much I helped like shape your musical taste and like just different things as like a mentor figure, which I didn't even realize until later.
Yeah, so as I've gotten older, I've started to kind of piece together like who were my mentors when I was growing up, like who kind of shaped who I was. And yeah, the people at the teen center were definitely people that shaped me, and then you in particular, because you were probably one of the ones that worked there that I was closer with, that I actually considered like, yeah, that's my friend. Like, yeah, it's Brandon. Yeah, we do this. We talk about this. So the sitting in the office, sitting there for hours. We talk about music, and you got me onto Kanye. Like, I knew who Kanye was, but you knew music, and you were somebody that you were actually like the first older person that I had met that was really into music and really into rap and hip hop, And my parents didn't grow up with that type of music. So, you kind of exposed me to some different types of music or different sounds, things I hadn't heard. Uh and even your music too, like the Nice Guy album, that first one with the cartoon sitting on the front steps there. Yeah, you ended up really shaping me as just a person for sure, because we had conversations about, just middle school, high school. I remember a specific like relationship thing. It wasn't a relationship, but something I liked a girl. Like, you helped me wrap my head around that stuff. And then, yeah, of course, music. Definitely a huge mentor in my life. As I look back on that, you kind of shaped who I am today.
That's dope, man, and that's crazy because I feel like that was the start of me doing that for countless other people. And I didn't I mean, maybe there was people that I did that for before that, like maybe like some of my younger brother's friends or something like that, but that just kind of, uh, I guess, just started a lifelong thing where I love to mentor younger people um, and work with younger people and especially, younger creatives and stuff. And I told you that I would get you on this podcast once you started doing something creative because this podcast is all about creative people, different kinds. And you started a podcast called The Roses That Be.
I did.
And so you first presented the idea to me, and you're like, hey, man, I'm thinking of doing a Bachelor podcast. Or you were like, I don't even think you said Bachelor right away, but you were like, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, and you might think it's kind of dumb, whatever. And I'm like, oh, what is it? And you're like, a Bachelor podcast. And I'm like, oh, I fucking hate The Bachelor. And like, cause I remember watching Good Morning America with my mom and like talking with her and just being like, oh, it's so stupid. I can't get into this. Like why are people into this? And she would be like, yeah, it's dumb. But then when you presented the idea, I was like, all right, I can maybe do that. And you hired me to do it. But bro, like you're what? This will be like 14 episodes when this,
Yeah.
15 episodes when this. And dude, it's been amazing. Like it's a great podcast, bro. So how did you come up with the idea?
I used to be like you, Brandon. I didn't like the show. I was a high school student, or high school age person. I was at my girlfriend's house, and she put on Bachelorette season. It was Emily Maynard, and I mean, we watched it, and it was whatever. But I remember thinking it was so dumb. And at that time, I'd only been exposed to like Flavor of Love. I Love New York, like those shows on VH1 and stuff. So I was just, it kind of fit into that category for me. It was just kind of fake reality TV, whatever. So I didn't really like the show. And then fast forward like 7 years or so, and I meet my now fiance, and she has me watch the show. And I'm a little grown now. I'm an English teacher. I went to school to be an English major, so I kind of like the stories behind things and whatnot, and the behind the scenes aspects of things and how things work. And so we're watching the show, and I ended up kind of developing that liking for it and figuring out that there was a story behind each person, and there was a past and a future, and it's really cool to kind of look and analyze that stuff. So I went back and watched like every season possible that I could, all the way back to like 2007, um, and watched everything and just got super into it. And I've watched it multiple times and stuff. And yeah, so now we go to what, 14 weeks ago, 15 weeks ago. I mean, when I had the idea, I got it in motion pretty much after you gave me yeah, it sounds like a good idea. So yeah, a few months ago, I was like, there's only a few people that do interviews with the cast of the show. And one of them was on the show, and the other one is Reality Steve, who's, just a huge reality person if you watch reality TV. And other people do it too, but they're the top two. And I was like, let's have a fan do it. Why not? And they don't ask all the great questions. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and do it this way, and we'll kind of shape it about how things have changed, and you get to see where people have ended up since being on the show. So yeah, I just thought, I'm gonna do this. It'll be fun. Like, but the trick was, how could I possibly get people to go on the show? So yeah, after I texted you, I remember, just like you said, I said, you're gonna think this is stupid, because I don't tell a whole lot of people that I like watch The Bachelor. And I threw the idea at you. You said it was solid. So I don't know. I just started hitting up people on Facebook, or adding them on Facebook, and I got like one hit eventually, and they said, "Yep, they'll do it." And they accepted my friend request. And then after that, it just started snowballing. And I'm referring mostly to just like getting the people on for the podcast, but it just started snowballing. Like, yeah, Facebook, those algorithms, once you get a friend, like one friend added, now everyone that's their friend gets exposed to you. And so one after the other, people would accept me as a friend. And then next thing you know, like these huge millions of follower or a million plus followers on Instagram are my friends on Facebook, and they're responding to my messages and telling me, yeah, I'll be on the podcast and stuff like that. So um yeah, it kind of, once that steamrolled, I got the confidence and I started the podcast, and now we're 13 episodes in, 14 episodes in after Saturday this week.
You had to have been scared shitless with, like, the first one.
I mean, I'll admit it. Like I was truly. You have to imagine. Like I'm watching this season from 2010. The first person I talked to was Elizabeth Kidd, who's this amazing person, and she was on the show back in 2010. And I had just watched her season this past summer. I really like binged a lot of the stuff this past summer. So I had just seen her on TV this summer. She'd been on like three, a couple of spin-off shows too. So she'd been on my TV screen for a minute, and then she pops up on my computer screen and I'm talking to her. And there was that starstruck moment where, I don't know if you want to admit it, maybe some people aren't like this, but it's like, yeah, it's that's someone you just saw on TV. You're kind of a little bit
Right.
like, oh, this is, even if it's a reality TV star and not, Leonardo DiCaprio, it's still like, oh my gosh, they were just on TV. Like, hi, how are you? You're kind of nervous. So, and you can hear that, I think, when you listen to the episode. Some people don't, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. But when I listen to it, and I don't listen to them much, but it's, it feels scripted. I can tell that I'm reading from something, and I was definitely nervous. And shoot, still, even now, I get a little nervous the first 5 minutes or so. But once you start to realize that it's just, you're talking to one person and that's it, like, I mean, even at the beginning of our little podcast here, like I fucked up the little intro, like, and then we're good to go. So yeah, nerves happen for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as somebody who deals with constant anxiety, I mean, I'm the same way, man. I get nervous before every interaction, like, ever. Like, no matter what. Like, I get nervous still before these podcasts, like, every time. I mean, it's a little less nowadays, but it's still there. It's just part of who I am, and just my nature. Which brings me to my next question. I know that you touch on a lot of heavy subjects in this. Like, you really dive into, like, mental health stuff, and you ask some really tough and personal questions, and people are very open with you. Is there a reason why you do that?
There is. I mean, it's a two-part reason. Like the small reason is just that I mean, that's a big part of being on the reality TV show is, how being on reality TV and the manipulation that you can face with producers and such like that, like, can affect you. And then the hate that you could get on social media afterwards, or blogs back in the day and such. So I do touch on it for that reason. But then there's also like the personal reasons, and that's, I had my fair share of, struggles as far as with depression and anxiety, probably 6 or so years ago, for a few years for sure. And so it's important to me. I think, not a lot of people talk about it. I mean, when I was growing up, it was definitely, and probably even when you were growing up, I mean, people didn't really talk about that stuff. It wasn't really like a thing. Like you knew the words depression and anxiety, but it was just, I almost had a negative connotation to it. I mean, it did, I feel like. And nowadays, I feel like more people are open and talking about it, and I want to be a part of that as well. And I think it just helps to, I don't know, share your experience, or at the very least, open up and say, I battled with anxiety. There was a point in my life where I was so anxious that I couldn't even get out of bed, or I just lay on the couch. I mean, and it all happened like that. I mean, it's the craziest experience. If anyone listens to Logic when he talks about
Yep.
um, his anxiety attack while waiting, I think it was at a Star Wars.
Movie line, yep.
Yeah, and he had that, and if you listen to his lyrics in that song, like, or I think he might have even just been talking in that moment, but um, it's exactly like that. I mean, I was at Thanksgiving dinner at the house that I'm sitting in right now, and it all of a sudden at dinner, it's just, I don't know if anyone's ever like felt, it's a panic attack, I guess is all I'll say. It's just like you had a panic attack, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I felt like my heart was going too crazy. It just all happened so fast in front of like two guests, my family, and then two guests. I had to go sit in the bathroom, and I had no clue what was going on, and so it's just it starts like that, and I feel like people shouldn't be ashamed to say that they battled through that, and I think it helps people when you do share that that happened, because then people don't feel like they're crazy or weird, and I think that's how it spirals, you start to feel like what's wrong with you, what's going on, why am I feeling like this? My peers aren't feeling like this. I don't see them dealing with this, and that's why it's whenever an athlete comes out and says, or a celebrity comes out and says like, yeah, I battled with this and this is what I was going through. I just am like so I don't know, happy because it's like you need kids to hear that. You need adults to hear that. You need everyone to hear that stuff that people have gone through things. So that's why it's important to me. That's why I like talking about it. And if my listeners can, hear some of those things, maybe that'll help them not go on Instagram and tell people to go kill themselves after they did some dumb thing on reality TV, for 5 minutes on it's just, that's a big piece of it. And going back to like the other part, it's people that were on The Bachelor get so much hate and it's so undeserved and it's worse than just like, I wish you didn't do that. Why'd you do that?" It's like, "You're a bitch. Fuck you. Go kill yourself." I mean, it's horrible stuff that people post on, someone's social media and uh gosh, even recently with like the racism stuff that's been kind of brought to light with The Bachelor, it's like people went on Rachel Lindsay's Instagram and just lit her up with stuff that you would think this is like the 1950s, but it's, it's to 2021. It's like we're not getting past this stuff. It's just ridiculous that things like that are out there. And it does affect some of the contestants. So I like to talk about those things. And I think it also helps them to be able to talk about their experience. At least that's what I've been told. So, and that feels great as well to give. It's what I've said with my podcast. I want to give everybody an opportunity to share their story, and if part of their story is some of the struggles that they had dealing with the manipulation they felt on the show, or even maybe the breakup, if they got that far into the show and it that affected them, or the hate on social media afterwards, I want to give them an opportunity to share that story. So yeah, that's why I like talking about those things. I just think it's important. It should be normalized to have those types of conversations.
Absolutely, and that's what I love about it too. I feel like it really humanizes these people because we look at these people on TV and or even like in the music scene. And for years I would do like this thing where I would put people on a pedestal and be like, oh, they're so perfect and they're this and that. Um, but I deal with all this fucking mental shit and like all this shit. Like I wish I was as cool as them, or and I think it humanizes people when people talk about those things, those struggles and stuff, and it lets people know that like, yo, you can be on TV, or you can be creative, or you can be that you can do those things too. You're not any different than those people, so and that's what I try to do with this podcast as well. I mean, there's been a few where we haven't really touched on anything mental health wise, but I really want it to be mental health centered, because I do feel like so many creatives go through those type of things. Like I mean, like I said, like I go through debilitating sometimes anxiety, and I've the more I think about it and the more I remember, I mean, I've had depression issues since I was a child. And I mean, I was in as early as middle school, I started being medicated for different things like anxiety or ADD, depression, and like all through high school, I was heavily medicated, because of all those things, and it's something that I can't even remember a time in my life that I haven't battled it. I'm 36 now, and it's still issues that I face on a regular basis. Um, and so, yeah, so I really appreciate you opening up about that and you talking about that with these people, because there is a stigma for sure.
There definitely is. There definitely is a stigma, and yeah, like I mean, like we just said, it's talking about it. Hopefully, ends that stigma. As it becomes more and more normalized, it'll end those types of things. So yeah, and like you had said that it affected you, probably since middle school and like being medicated and whatnot. It's like me, same thing. That I had ADHD meds, but I didn't get on the anxiety or depression stuff until I actually had that panic attack when I was 20. Um, but when I look back, like there were pieces of, I was never diagnosed with anxiety or depression when I was younger, but like I started to kind of look back on instances in my life when I was younger and realize like that was probably just a tiny bit of that. I mean, when I was really young, I was super scared that like I was, I thought like a bruise was might have been cancer because I heard on the radio that somebody had a bunch of bruises and they got diagnosed with cancer. And I was probably like 5 when that happened, but it was like there it was, and it was probably for like a week straight. I was really just scared of anything. Like, could I be sick? Is something gonna happen to me? And small things like that, and then anything through high school. I mean, there's probably tons of situations, but yeah. Anyway, it's talking about it ends the stigma, and if more people talk about it, it's going to be better for everyone, I think.
Yeah, and, yeah, what you told me, about you, like, when you were little and how, like, health anxiety and, hypochondria. My girlfriend really has health anxiety, and I do to a certain extent, but, my girlfriend's all stemmed from her brother having cancer, and then my mom was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago, so her and I have that shared trauma in common now. Like when COVID hit, for example, um, you know, I've been taking it seriously. I mean, like I've only gotten together with maybe a handful of people, if that, in like a year plus. I mean, I've definitely developed this routine of like, going home and going to work and just going for walks and it's been like that for a whole year and just doing my work and all that stuff and um it's definitely related to my mom's cancer. I know it is. I mean, I probably would have done that regardless, but I when COVID hit, it made me really, really take it seriously because of my trauma.
Yeah. The hypochondria stuff is, I mean, it stinks to deal with. I mean, any little thing. And I dealt with a tiny bit of that when COVID first started. I mean, I have asthma. And so initially when it first started, I was very like, oh man, I hope I don't get it. I mean, I wasn't wearing a mask in the very, very beginning, before masks became
Yep.
mandated and all that, but like I was I was thinking about it. It was on my head all the time, like, oh shoot. And I remember like holding my breath in areas like prior, like if was in a small confined space, like initially I was like, and luckily, I mean, I didn't deal with that the whole time. I ended up kind of moving away from that feeling, but I mean, just that I get that little bit of anxiety and stuff like that. I mean, like those are instances where I definitely still will deal with it. And I don't know if I had mentioned earlier, like I don't, because you had said you still battle with it for you've had it pretty much extensions of
Yep.
whole life, and I think the same way for me, except for I just was, and I guess probably the same for you, but it was like I had that moment where it was like the worst, and I had like this packet of like it was the worst where I was dealing with it, and then eventually I got to like this, routine, controlled, like I know how to deal with it and stuff, and but there's always these small little things that'll, trigger the anxiety or whatnot, and like the hypochondria, the small little bit of that is one of them. Or for me, it's like death, like whatever
Oh
that
yeah.
fear is, like what happens after life.
Yep. Yep. Me too.
That's the one that gets me. Like,
Yep.
oh, I mean, yeah, that's the one that gets me. Sitting there and you start to think about like, what happens when you die? Like, does it
Yep.
just turn black? Does it
Right.
just turn black, or like,
Yep.
are we gonna live another life, or like, do you go to heaven? Like what happens? I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just
dude.
it's scary like when you start to think about
Yep.
that stuff. That's definitely something that will get me for sure.
For real. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, like you said, like, I mean, I've gotten a lot better. I mean, especially in the last couple of years. I mean, uh, I think COVID really, in a weird way, like, yeah, it gave me like this health anxiety stuff, but at the same time, because I was so alone with my thoughts, it made me love myself, and love what I do and like love people more and appreciate people more. And Um, like, I mean, I think we've kind of talked about this, but my business has boomed since COVID. I mean, it's like I'm like I have to schedule my days like to a T. You know, I still work a day job, but like at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm doing editing your podcast on a regular basis. I'm working on mixing a buddy's album. I'm doing like radio commercials. I'm doing another person's these group of doctors podcast. And that's, I mean, that's not as regular as yours, but that's like once a month. But yeah, man. So I mean, in the last couple years, it's really like made me focus and just appreciate myself and appreciate my life, you know?
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, it's definitely everyone needs that, like, not necessarily alone time, but like time to just be in your own thoughts, start to think about things. And when you're able to do that, you're able to grow as a person. And that's one thing that I hope a lot of people took away from this past year and a half. I feel like we're kind of on that end of it where now we're starting to get back into, you know, going out and doing things again. And, you know, hopefully people in this last year and a half have had those moments of growth to yourself, you know, work on yourself a little bit. Um, and like you said, you have. I definitely feel like I have, just trying to. I mean, I graduated college in the midst of this and stuff.
Talk about that. Like I didn't even know until um you started talking about this podcast that you became a teacher. Like how did that
Yeah.
all start?
I ended up playing junior hockey after high school for a few years.
Oh, word. I
So,
didn't know that.
yeah, so I was kind of suitcasing it around the country. And so I did that. And I think it wasn't until I was 19. No, 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 my bad. Like 21, 20. Yeah, 2021 that I got back home. My dreams of playing in the NHL did not follow through. And yeah, I wanted to go back to school. I wasn't a good student when I was a kid. That's the big thing. Like I mean, I was smart. I was really smart. I did not apply myself one bit. I did not try at all in high school. And I'd get in trouble a lot. Like you said, I was like really annoying to some people at the community center. Yeah, ask any teacher I had in high school. I was really annoying. Um, so yeah, I wasn't anyone that anyone would have pegged to be a teacher, but I ended up going to college just to go back to school, just to try to do something. And then I found a coaching job where I used to train as a goalie. And I started to work with kids, and like they'd get so happy when you teach them something and they do it right. And I don't know, something started to click, like, oh, I love this, right? So that I kind of continued the coaching for a bit. Um, and I thought, I'll go do like community college, do couple of education classes or whatnot. And I ended up getting like a coaching job at Breck High School. So like I continued my, you know, coaching and whatnot, and or working with kids and having that satisfaction of a young mind like learning something from you, or, you know, gaining something from something that you had to say or your own experiences. And then I eventually started working at the old schools that I had gone to as like a para, and I went to college. And
My mom was a para for a while.
was she? Yeah,
Yep.
Paralife is crazy. Paralife is insane. You're just, I don't know. You want the kids to all love you, but at the same time, you're the one that really has to lay down the law. So you can't.
Mhm.
There's like this line, right? If the kids like you too much, well, you want them to like you all the time. Let me rephrase. If the kids get too comfortable with you, meaning that you get too much on their level, they eventually start to over you, you know, not fully, but they start to kind of like teeter around you and
Yep.
do what they want to do and not listen to you. And the para life is tough because you want all the kids to really like you a lot, because it makes sense that they would listen to you more. But then there's like a line, and it's a hidden line. And once you cross that hidden line that can't really be seen with any kid, you're screwed as a para. So para life is insane.
Dude, yeah, I mean, I wanna get back to what we were talking about, but I just gotta share a quick story about my
No,
mom.
yeah, definitely.
So my mom was a para from, like, 95 to, like, 2008, but she worked with, behavior kids, like, high behaviors, and she you know, like, you were talking about, like, you know, you want the kids to like you, but some kids did not, and my mom ended up getting hit in the back, and she had to, like, retire essentially because of it.
I've seen
So
that.
yeah, like, the para life is no joke, dude, like you
It's no
said.
joke. The kids are, yeah, and some kids, they will, get physical, and I've seen that as well at a school that I worked at. A teacher was injured by a kid that was swinging or flailing, and it's insane. Like, of course, you would not, you can't be physical with these kids ever, and uh, sometimes it gets to that point where you kind of have to just be there, and the kid's doing this, and eventually there's people that are trained to, um, you know,
Intervene.
intervene. Yeah, let's use that. There's like, it's called CPI training. And so, if you're not CPI trained, sometimes you have to just take it. And I've been that way where the kid just hits you, kicks you, and that's it. And eventually, somebody, they come pretty quick. You have walkies and stuff. So, and it's, usually you're never in any actual danger. So, but it's in that instance, like with your mom, it's insane. Like, she had to retire because she was hit so hard, and yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and the paras are the ones that usually get the blunt of that. I'm sure teachers do eventually too, but well, everyone's a teacher, but classroom teachers do. But yeah, Paralife is insane. But yeah, so eventually I went to like Metro State University. I went to School of Urban Education there, and really honed in my skills and whatnot, and did student teaching, and did what do you call them, practicums and whatnot. And yeah, eventually I just got a teaching job and started teaching, and so that's what I do now. And yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I no one would have ever thought I would be a teacher. Anyone that finds out now, they're kind of like, no way, seriously, you're a teacher? Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome. Uh, but I think it's good to have like the background that I did, and I think it really does help me. I mean, it's really evident, like, just the being able to share some experiences with kids. Like, I teach 8th grade, so I can literally, like, get them to realize, because I'm right in front of them, telling them that they have 1 year to really figure it out, because my story with them always is I didn't try. So by the time I got to
Yep.
senior year and realized that what my GPA was, and that I wouldn't go to colleges or anything like
Yeah,
that, and
same.
especially for hockey, like, I mean, it kicked into overdrive, and it was too late. You can get straight A's senior year, which is almost what I did. I was very close. A's and a couple of B's. Still didn't really change my GPA. It was already too bad, and it eventually got me to a point where colleges were like, "Well, you can't even get accepted into here until you do all these tests and this and that." I'm like, and you're definitely not going to play hockey. So, uh, yeah, like, I can share that with these kids, and so I think that helps. And then as far as the behavior stuff goes, I mean, I don't know. There were teachers that knew how to work with me, and I think I'm able to use what some of those teachers didn't necessarily teach me, but I can, learn from how they interacted with me, and I apply that into my teaching now. So I think, like, my background really helps for teaching, and this is like my fit. I think everyone needs to, like, figure out, like, what their thing is in life. And that's one thing for education for me, is like, that's my thing. I'm like really good at doing what I do. That's the one thing. I might stink at podcasting kinda, but
Nah, dude, you're dope all around, man.
but yeah, the teaching is that's my thing. That's my passion for sure.
I'm proud of you, man, because yeah, I wish that I would have had like a teacher as a mentor. Because to be honest with you, like I don't remember. Like I mean, I remember some of my teachers in school, but like I didn't have that like loving like mentor teacher moment until I went to IPR. Which is audio engineering school. And then I met, these teachers that were, very much like mentors and stuff like that. But I wish I would have had, a teacher like you, back in the day, because I feel like I could have used that extra attention and that extra, push and love. Because when I moved to I actually like, long story, but I date it back to third grade when I moved to Minnesota from California. The school system there was so behind. And when I moved to Minnesota, to Plymouth, to like a suburban, like nicer school than what I was used to in California, they were all like eons ahead of where I was. Like for example, we were like just starting multiplication and division in California. These kids already freaking knew all of it basically. And like that right there, like I should have been held back in 3rd grade. Like there is no reason why I should have kept going because then like I never caught up years and years and years and I was a super senior. I ended up graduating late in the 2004 school year when I was supposed to graduate 2003. Which ended up being a good thing because I graduated with a couple best friends and I had a girlfriend at the time and prom was great my super senior year. So that was great. But like um I didn't end up going to college right after high school either. I waited 10 years actually. I mean, like I said, like I at 20 years old, I started at the community center. I didn't do shit other than like making beats and going to this like, you know, part-time job and, doing making albums and stuff, which was fine in retrospect, but at the same time it's like like I said, I wish I would have had more mentors to help push me and help, notice my talents and stuff like that and help guide me.
Yeah, I want to touch on the mentor thing for sure, but real quick, did you do you wish, looking back, do you wish that you were held back?
Oh yeah.
So you think being held back would have been more beneficial? And it's always weird to look back on life and say, I wish this changed, because then you don't know where your life would be now. But
Right.
like, if we could keep it just centered into the high school portion and everything else was what it is now, you wish you were held back. You think it would have helped?
Either that or like like I said, like having some great freaking teachers that would like, take me aside and like really like help,
Yeah,
extra help.
for sure.
Because like at the same time it's like kids need that extra help, but sometimes they don't want it because they don't like the teachers or like they don't, want to spend extra time, after
Talking with
school
them.
or talking with them or whatever.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, I do think it would have been more beneficial if I was held back in 3rd grade.
I asked because it's always a topic of conversation, especially with what's gone on with COVID.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Some schools, some districts, I mean, the numbers, when it was distance learning, kids didn't show up. And if they were in there, they were playing video games while they were on their screens. And, if you didn't have them have their cameras on, you didn't know what they were doing. And
Oh yeah.
they were playing video games and on their phone because that's what they do in class anyway,
Yep.
if you allow it. So there's no way they were paying full attention. So kids really almost they didn't get a full education this year or at the end of last year, until they honestly, I mean, until they were back in classes. I mean, because they're kids, and maybe not everyone, but a huge majority probably in this country, and that's the question. I mean, that's the topic of discussion. Like, should somebody be held back? Should can you hold kids back? Because there's all these studies and statistics and all this stuff like that with that, but um, yeah, it's just I never knew that about you, that you were, really far behind and whatnot, and then you were a super senior.
It's seeped into my 30s, bro, like a lot of that. So yeah, I mean, education is so important, bro. And it's so um I mean, we know that. Like everybody like obviously we know that, but like it's just I think it's super important to have better teachers and people like you.
Yeah, and like going back to the mentor thing. I mean, that stinks that you never had a teacher like that. I was lucky enough to have one teacher like that, and she's a mentor to me now as I am going into my teaching career, as I had recently just started it. So, um, everyone needs those mentors, and I really try. That's one thing I do, and if any teachers are listening to this, or prospective teachers are listening to this, it's the one thing I try to do is you need to talk to every kid. Every time, every class period, you need to go up to every single student that's in your classroom and have some interaction with them.
Absolutely.
Every single classroom. And I someday wanna be that type of person that's, like, at TED Talks telling people how to be a teacher
Yep.
and how to, even if I'm not the smartest English major out there, which I'm not even close, but I'm probably gonna be one of the better building relationships with kids and, getting kids to, latch on and heed to what you're saying. And that's one thing, you need to talk to every single kid. And that's something actually I've gotten feedback from my students where like, you've always reached out, you always try to talk to everyone. Like kids have written those and those like teacher appreciation week letters they wrote. You talk to everyone. You always make everyone feel like they're important. Um thank you for talking to me. I don't feel like some of my teachers talk to me that often. Like, what? You need to
Damn.
talk to every single kid,
Yeah.
and, like, that stinks. It sounds like you didn't have a teacher that, you know, you don't even have to go out of your way, but just, say something to each kid. At the very least, say hi when they walk in the
Right.
classroom. Make them feel like they aren't just a body walking through your classroom,
Yep.
They're kids, they're awesome, they're our future. So that's why, you know, yeah, like we said, education is so important and stuff, and
Yeah,
that
man.
stinks you didn't have a mentor like that.
Yeah, and, I mean, I there are certain people that I can kinda say, like, were mentors and stuff like that, but that is one of the biggest reasons why, you know, I loved, like, being a mentor to you when I was, working at the teen center and, like, so on, like, throughout my life and, music career, I've been mentors for younger artists. It's because I never had stuff like that.
And you need that in a school. You need that in a
Yeah.
school setting to almost enjoy school. You kinda do need that.
Yeah, and I think even, like, discovering and I don't know if you do this at all, but, like, discovering what each kid's kinda talent is now, like, early,
Yes.
you know?
It's my favorite thing to do. I mean, and the kids, I mean, you'll never guess what some kids are super into or what they do. I mean, like, I have a student that is an amazing writer. I would put money on it if it was a bet in Vegas. I would put money that this person is going to be an author someday. They're just that good at writing and they have that much of a passion. I have another one that, of course, you always have students that are great at sports and whatnot. I have other students that just love music, make tons of music, and I substituted a music class the other day,
Oh,
couple
that's
of
dope.
weeks last week. The 5th graders, they're in there using GarageBand, putting loops together and beats and stuff like that. I mean, shout out to that music teacher. I mean, obviously they're using the technology at their disposal, but we didn't have that in school. I would have loved music class
Dude,
if
straight
that's what
up.
we were doing. I mean, they're making beats, they're putting stuff together, and the kids are all showing me. It's the first time I'm meeting them. Like, you want to hear my thing? And then they got all these different sounds going on GarageBand at the same time, and it sounds decent. It's like, look at you, you're gonna be like Skrillex or something someday. Like,
Dude, that's so
just
dope,
cool.
man. Like, I'm so jealous of the technology the kids have now, man. Because
Yes.
I mean, I got into making beats, like, on computers when I was, 17, so, like, 2002, but even then, like, it wasn't really a thing, and now it's, like, everywhere, and like you're saying, like, it's in schools now and shit, like, I wish we woulda had that shit, like,
Yeah.
it woulda been crazy if I was, younger and I used to make, like, sketch comedy with my mom's VHS, I wish that I woulda kept doing that and, like, got into YouTube super early, so, like I said, like, catching these kids early and like helping them hone their talents and like interests and building on that I think is so beneficial and the next generation is gonna be beastly, bro.
They are. They
Like
truly
straight
are.
up.
People need to wrap their head around that.
Yep.
They do.
Straight
I
up.
mean, I'll say this, they might have, worse handwriting than the previous generations.
Yeah, for sure.
They might not have some of the, I don't know what kind of skills you wanna call them, but there's just that, like, cursive, like, these kids aren't gonna know cursive.
Right.
There's other bigger things that they are not gonna know or they don't need to know that we know, or had to know because that's what life was like then. But they're gonna be dominant in anything tech-wise
Yeah,
or
for
thinking
sure.
futuristically, science, math stuff. I mean, I even at the 8th grade, 7th grade level, I mean, the things that they're able to do on with the computers and such, I never thought I would look at a kid and go, "Yeah, you're more tech savvy than me," because I always thought, like, I was the tech savvy one to the
Same,
adults.
yeah.
Like, I was the one showing, everyone how to change the input on the TV, and getting the computer on and stuff like that. I was tech savvy, and now these kids are out here writing code in, like, 4th grade. Never would
That's
we have done
nuts.
that in school. They're
Yeah.
writing code, they are making music, they are building machines in science class stuff, like STEM, and, like, the real world applications that they have are just different, like, there was always those times when I was in school where we sat there and we were like, "Why are we learning this? Nobody even does this anymore," right?
Yep.
Like, I hate to say this, but, like, some of the, like, finance stuff that we learned, I've never once utilized
Oh
any of the
yeah.
finance things that they taught us because
Yep.
immediately after high school, finance was like it was cards, debit cards, credit cards, whatever. It wasn't like writing this
Writing,
and
yeah.
doing that, and it's like we're learning how to do like a some cash thingy, like writing a all this different stuff. I write checks. Everyone needs to know that. But there was stuff we learned that was just like pointless. And these kids now, they're like, they do like auctions and they learn stuff, and they're realizing, like, with fake money stuff, they're realizing like the value of certain things and what happens when there's not enough supply of something, like how it the cost
Oh,
raises. Like
supply
they're
and
doing
demand.
activity, yeah, they're learning that stuff through activities and actually doing it, and they're building cities and like STEM classes, and they have money, they have to buy supplies to make like trebuchets and stuff like that. Like they're just doing things that are gonna help them when they get out of high school and whatnot.
Yeah, you saying that and talking about GarageBand, I totally forgot about this, and you saying STEM, like, reminded me of this. 2 years ago, I had the honor of, helping a summer STEM program, being, like, an assistant teacher because this guy, when I went, because I went back to IPR for 6 months to get another degree because I only needed, like, a few credits, j that was just 2 years ago, and, one of my teachers laid down a phone number and didn't say much, was just like, "This guy needs help, anybody who needs a gig, call this guy." And I was like, "All right." And I was never really like that before. I was never like, I would, the other kids are kind of like, oh, whatever. And I would just wrote down the guy's number and I'm like, fuck it. And, I called him up and I was like, "Hey man, Kevin Bowe said you got this opportunity, whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm a teacher and I need, help with teaching these kids how to record podcasts and how to like do this and that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that. That would be sweet." And so I helped teach this STEM class, and met this girl who actually need to hit up. And the teacher, the guy that hired me, brought me and her aside and was like, "Hey, she's a really good singer. Like you should, like help her like learn beats and stuff like that." So like as I was teaching these kids like podcasting stuff, I would like bring this girl to like a room essentially and help her like construct a beat, and she wrote the craziest song, bro. And I'm still like, I still think about it every now and then. I'm like, I need to finish that with her. Like I need to hit her up. I think she's like probably graduated because she was probably like a sophomore or a junior, but back then, so she's probably like graduated like last year or something. But like a bunch of personal stuff happened and I just wasn't able to like finish that with her. But like you saying that reminded me of just like I was able to like show her a few things, and like I didn't really like, I was hands on, but like I didn't spend a whole lot of time. I would just kind of like check on her and be like, "Oh, okay, try this, this, and this," and like come back, and she would like have all this crazy stuff, and I'd help her structure the song, but she wrote all the lyrics herself. And I'm like, holy shit, like the hook is catchy, the verses and it all makes sense, and I'm like, damn, what the fuck?
That's
Like,
insane.
yeah, it
Oh
was
my
it
gosh.
was crazy. It was like a crazy like the like I said, like the next generation is just gonna have crazy skills, bro.
Yeah. And that feeling you had when they were doing all that stuff probably was just awesome. Like,
Oh yeah.
just that showing them something. And even like you said, like you weren't like fully hands on, but you're just like, oh yeah, try this, do this, maybe do this instead or whatever you were showing her. And then they run with it. And that's the awesomeness with these kids is like, you don't have to handhold them through school. You just kind of give them some ideas, throw this here, sprinkle a little of this here, and then they run with it, and their brains are gonna start functioning and doing all that stuff. So it's really cool to see. But yeah, that's awesome that you gotta do that. I remember you posted something about that on Facebook, like you were doing that type of gig. So when you said that, I remembered that. That's awesome that you did that. You were a teacher.
Yeah. And like you talking about this, I'm like, damn, should I teach?
It's fun. I mean, and the thing is like nowadays, like I mean, I don't. You could be a music teacher. I mean, then there's more specific things. There's like some of these, arts academies and stuff, music
Yeah, that's what
academy
I was
schools.
thinking, something like that.
Yeah, they do more specific classes that would be music oriented, and where you could be at like a performing arts school, and you could be teaching kids how to record audio and do this and put beats together, like all these things. That would be so, or podcasting even like that's what those are literally some of the electives that kids have now. Like, I'm sure some high school in America has a podcasting elective or
Yeah, I bet.
audio. There's definitely audio classes now in high schools and stuff. So like there are those specific teachers, and the good thing is, like, there's teachers that could be full-time doing that, or you could be, like, a third of the day, a fifth of the day or whatever, like, just a class or a few classes, like, that's the cool thing with those gigs now is, like, you can be a very specific teacher and teach these kids that trade or whatever it is and get out of there, and you shape some lives and help some kids grow and learn something.
That's so important, bro, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the fact that you do that now, man. That's crazy. So back to the roses that be. What is your ultimate goal with the podcast?
My ultimate goal, honestly, is to be like the most known Bachelor podcast out there. I would love to have everyone that's been on the show, that's still with us, to share their story, and I'd love to have, like, this huge catalog of just, you go watch the seasons, and then you can watch an episode and or listen to an episode and hear that person's story and such. And, yeah, I just wanna be, like, the most ultimately, I wanna be the most known Bachelor podcaster. I wanna be, like, the go-to, this is the place for the interviews, that's what I want, and, honestly, I think that's realistic, but if we're gonna go a little bit more down to earth as far as, like, goals, I just wanna if I kept the same amount of listeners that I'm getting now and just kind of plateaued for growth, and everyone kept coming on and I could continue it and just get everyone's story out there, like, I'd be happy. It's just fun even talking to these people and doing that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, I wanna dominate this thing. Like, I want people to be like, yeah, Roses That Be is the podcast if you wanna, you know, get interviews or in depth stuff with Bachelor content and whatnot.
I see that happening, man. I feel like from the very beginning, like I mean, I heard how serious you were when you even brought the idea, and like your goal and like your drive for this has not wavered at all, and like you've been consistent as fuck. I mean, and we both have like with, as far as like you sending me the stuff I need every Friday, or like even before that, I mean, but like I get to work on the edit Saturday and you upload right after. It's just been every single week, and you like I'm like, damn, like another one, another one, another one, like all these different people every week. I'm like, damn, sooner or later you're gonna be interviewing every single Bachelor contestant ever.
That's the goal. And it's crazy because this is really, based off of your description, it might not sound like it, but this has been on the back burner of my days. Like, it's always on my mind. I always know that I got to get this stuff done, right? Like, that's why maybe on a Saturday morning is when I'm sending you the intro outro. Um, and it's just like, cause I'm a teacher. Like, that takes precedent, obviously. And then
Yep.
there's, some other things that you just, life that you have to deal with. And it's like, um, it's I wish it's been, like, my full focus. I'd love to see what it would be like with my full focus, but, like, yeah, it's been consistent. I've been trying to get I have my goals set. And, there's been pieces where it's like, "Okay, who do I interview next?" But, like, luckily, it's just continued to grow and whatnot. The problem is a lot of people wanna talk later. They're like, "Let's wait till the summer. Let's do this."
Yep.
So I have a lot scheduled for June, and it's like, okay, now I got to get to June. Like, I'm kind of running on 4 or 5 recordings right now that, stuff like that. But yeah, it's been consistent. I've worked hard with it and whatnot. Um, and it's grown each week. That's been the thing. Like, there was a period of time where I don't know how your like numbers and stuff look, and I don't know how a lot of people's numbers and stuff look, but like as far as mine go, there was like one week where it kind of dipped, right? Like, I had a really great week. I had my best week and then it dipped. And then the next week it shot back up. But I mean, on that dip there, you started to question, like, all right, is it dead? Like,
Right.
did I mess it up or something like that? Is it not gonna fly or whatnot? And then you bounce back with like the best weeks and then they're consistent, and so it's grown each time, and that's helped too. Like, just seeing, even if it was one more listener per week, it's like it helps. It motivates you to keep it going, and luckily it is growing a lot. So it's like it's been fun to kind of see the growth and whatnot.
That's dope. Yeah, I mean, for me, I know that like my podcast with Nice Minds, it's gonna be a very organic growth. And I'm not really pushing growth because I'm so busy with so many different projects. So I'm not like as focused on like, oh, I gotta like promote here and here and here and here, and like I gotta, paying attention to the numbers because like I just don't have time to, and so my goal with the podcast is to try a whole year of every Friday dropping and see how that goes. So my first one I dropped January 1st, and I've consistently kept it going every Friday, and sometimes twice a week. And so my goal is to go the whole year with every Friday, and then after that I might kind of reassess and then see what I can how I can grow this, and I eventually I want to get like some bigger names and stuff like that, some bigger artists and bigger creative people and stuff like that, and I have my list of possible people and stuff like that.
It's awesome that that's your goal to get one each week, and yeah, like you said, you've done that each week. Um, and you'll get there. I mean, that's
For sure.
I have no doubt that you'll actually end up doing it for a full year. And that's been my thing too though. Like it's tough to it is actually a little tough to get it out each week. Like
Yeah.
if and luckily like I have you doing all the hard stuff.
Right. Yeah, I got me doing all the hard stuff with
Yes.
my stuff and your
You're
stuff,
doing the
and like
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
doing a lot. So like the work that you have to put in to make your podcast happen is, times 10 compared to, what I have to do. I just have to
yeah.
make sure I get the recordings in there, put the notes in there and get the audio and all that and we're good to go. Then you work the magic, but it's worth it.
Yeah, dude, it's
I
way
just want to
worth it.
say if anyone's listening that's like starting a podcast and you don't use obviously you need to use Nice Guy if you're going to use, need audio production, but
Hell yeah.
if you don't use audio production, it's a game changer. People will if you go look at people's comments, go look at like normal podcasts, not huge podcasts and that have a decent amount of listeners and you'll see comments or reviews that say like, "Ah, the audio's shit. I'm not going to listen to it." Stuff like that.
Yep.
And people will stop listening just because the audio isn't that good. And I think we've all listened to a podcast where you're kind of like, "Oh, shoot, okay, that was actually really loud," or okay, I can't hear them. I have to turn this up and keep switching the volume or whatever. And so if you're not doing that, do it. It'll change your podcast if you're a podcaster. I mean, I guarantee it'll get you more listens. People will latch on to it and they want that. They need good quality. I mean, long term especially is what I've been reading from articles and such. It's like eventually you hit a point where people won't listen because of a quality of the show. They'll go to
Yep.
the better quality show. I mean, it's like, well, imagine watching a HD movie and then having to go watch a VHS from 2004 of that same movie. You're gonna be like, "What is this?"
Definitely, man, and I've gotten that's the biggest thing. I mean, I'm an audio dude. I went to audio school. I am in massive debt because of my audio education. So like audio and making things sound good is very important to me. Like video for me, like doing this video on YouTube is secondary. Like I don't give a shit. Like so one of these days I'm gonna learn like proper video, like clear, 1080p, 4K, whatever. I'll learn all that shit. But audio is obviously top priority for me as like a audio engineer. So yeah, definitely making it shit sound good, man. And I'm super honored that you came to me for your podcast, man.
At the end of the day, thanks for being a friend to the annoying kid at the community center. So it ended up working out in your favor. So,
Absolutely.
because no, and that's why like I ended up even throwing it at you. I know we started this by talking about how like I threw the idea your way about the podcast, and that's why I threw it your way in the first place. Because like you're the one person that I do know that has done a lot of things like ideas. Like you talked about sketch comedy earlier. Like I remember when you were talking about like, yeah, I want to like do sketch comedy and like make these videos and like and you actually ended up doing a little bit of
Yeah.
that and then audio stuff too, releasing the albums. Like you've created things, you've done things. And then you made your podcast too. So it was like, I definitely got to throw this Brandon's way and just to bounce it off of you. And really, in the last few months, we've talked a lot, but prior to that, I mean, we'd touch base every once in a while, maybe like
Yeah.
once a year or so. But it's I've always had that in my mind. Like Brandon's like the maker of things. Brandon's the creator, which is crazy because that's what we're talking about, like creative minds right now. So, um, yeah, there's no one else I would have tried to bounce that podcast idea off of. That's in my contacts. That's for sure.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate that, man. And Yeah, it's because of clients like you that I continue to do this shit, man, and am able to continue to do what I do, you know? So, man, so like I have endless gratitude for you and what you do in our friendship, man. It means a lot to me.
Same to you, my man. Same to you.
Well, thank you for joining me today, man. Do you have any last words for the people?
Ooh, I do this to my guests too,
I
and
know.
wow, I just felt that rush of
I
like,
think you
I have the
copied it from
final
me. I think you
words.
copied it.
Oh, I might. Hey,
No,
shh,
just kidding.
mum's the word. Mum's the word. Final words for the people. As it relates to this podcast, just if you have ideas in your head and you think it's a possibility that those ideas could like come to fruition, I mean, it always is a possibility, but just do it. Try it. Utilize the hour in your day that you might have to like do something that you hadn't done before, to try new things. I mean, it got me to this point right here. That's doing the podcast and being on Nice Minds. So, um, just do the things that are in your head. Try new things and have fun with it, and love life. Love life.
And I'll copy you for a second. Dan Bianco, everyone.
That's great.